Life is essentially like a startup. We were once an idea in the minds of our parents. When we came to be and took our first breath of air, we began life as a small working human prototype. After the first year of life, there then came a new and improved iteration with added skill sets such as the ability to speak and walk. The growth of the body then was rapid for the next few years, but in a highly orderly and controlled manner. Once the body reached a state of physical maturity, it left behind growing pains, and a new set of challenges came up. Some of the physical limitations were no longer in the forefront. The age of the mind had already begun by then. We learned that it was possible to generate happiness through the interaction of the mind and the world. Overall, when we compare the net gain of happiness from this type of interaction of the mind and the world with the amount of time and effort we would have to expend on such an effort, it may not always be a profitable use of our inner resources. To accommodate the ever-increasing mind-body enterprise, the mind then begins to grow rapidly. Unlike the body, which has a finite and predetermined blueprint that is followed to the minutest detail, the mind has no fixed plan or template for growth. Different influences in the mind, like the world we live in, our external environment, the education we have, and the associations we make in the world determine to a significant extent the growth trajectory of the mind. The mind, for the most part, maintains autonomy in its growth. Some aspects outgrow others depending on our desires, inclinations, aspirations, and our natural talents. The mind never stops growing. The mind, which appears mature and fully grown, is likely a highly conditioned mind. In some ways, maturity and the mind do not go hand in hand. The mind is very pliable by nature and is as active as a little child would be. The mind is our personal space of creativity. It's just like a startup incubator where numerous ideas are tested and worked on. The mind continually creates fresh ideas. A startup incubator cannot be closed to fresh ideas. Being open and adventurous in exploring ideas is the very premise of such places. Even when we remain close to new ideas, in its place the mind uses entrenched concepts and conditionings and creates the inner world of experiences within the boundaries of our habits and conditioning. The mind expresses creativity through whatever is contained within our thoughts, which then underlie our actions and interactions with the world. The mind becomes like a grocery store when it's habitual. A grocery store is a place where there's a predictable list of essentials that cater to the needs of the average customer. There is nothing new or special about a grocery store. It is essential, and it makes life easier when we can find many different things that we use and consume on a day-to-day basis in one place. Just like we frequent the neighborhood grocery store, we also frequent our habit-ridden mind, its patterns, and life becomes predictable. A mind that is habitual in nature makes it easy to negotiate some aspects of day-to-day existence, but there is nothing special about such a mind. It becomes more of a convenience, and nothing transformational happens from a conditioned habitual mind. Habits can play an important role in how we go about our day-to-day existence. There's no question about that. Without them, we would have to relearn many of the skills each and in every single day. We control the energy outflow into our habitual patterns of life. By keeping that outflow to a bare minimum, we free up a large chunk of the mind's available energy at any given moment in time. The conscious component of the mind is like the RAM, or the random access memory of a computer. RAM, as we know, is like the computer's short-term memory, and it can help carry out different concurrent tasks, like having different web browsers open at the same time. But if it's used by many tasks at the same time, exceeding the computer's capacity, the whole system may slow down. Likewise, the conscious mind can no doubt multitask, and also the energies of habits and new creativity work their way through the mind simultaneously. The art of good mind management starts with limiting energy outflow and expenditure on routine habits and conditioning, and directing much of that towards creativity. Although the mind is unlimited in its scope and energy, we cannot readily access those areas of the mind. We unfortunately limit ourselves to what we know and what is stored in the mind, and within those limitations, the available energy of the mind needs to be judiciously used between habits and new ideas. Let's say we have a habit of stopping at a drive-through place on the way to work each morning. We may spend a few minutes getting there and getting our morning coffee and breakfast. Once we consume that, we then proceed to work, where there are many different things that we may accomplish during that workday. That little habit of getting a coffee and a bite to eat in the morning on the way to work may not consume our entire day's energy, but we don't waste time on this habitual activity, and in fact it enhances the day in its own way. This is a good use of a habit. Limited use and maximize the benefit. We fuel a body, it becomes ready for work, so it's a perfect combination. Once we wake up in the morning, our morning routines and habits can be seen as this type of drive-through. We pick up what we need to from our habits, use them, enhance the day, and drop them. Instead, we carry some of these habit patterns everywhere we go. Unfortunately, the ones that we carry are more often the undesirable ones, such as anger, greed, jealousy, and even vindictiveness. These are toxic habits that burn our peace, happiness, and creativity. If we can leave such habits where we found them in the mind, or put them aside completely, a significant space of energy becomes available within our own being. Every time a habit pattern pops up in the mind, we have a choice. Do we go with the habit or not go with the habit? When we choose to step into the groove and be carried by that energy, those grooves of habit are limiting. The space in which those grooves travel and move about is the space that is full of the mind's potential, where new ideas and fresh insights can blossom. In this space, our inner journey also begins. It first begins with the idea of wanting peace and happiness. This is not a new idea. Everybody is in the same pursuit of peace and happiness, but few are able to turn that idea into lasting reality. Often the simplest ideas are the best ones. Peace and happiness are simple concepts to grasp. Everybody can relate to it, including those with very limited external knowledge of the world. The inner journey is our spiritual startup. In any startup, a great idea may be less important than efficient and timely implementation of the idea into a successful venture. Just as laptops and smartphones are integral to any new startup, a small amount of peace and happiness function as laptops and cell phones and help us become curious about the inner journey. We want more of that. When life is in constant turmoil, it makes little sense to turn inwards. It may then become an escape. Unless we approach the inner journey as if we are following our nature to go inward and for no other reason, it may not bring about a lasting transformation in our lives. The mind is like the internet. These days, an idea, a laptop, and the internet, new startups can come into existence, and they can build their products online in the cloud with just these bare elements. Co-working spaces lower the bar even more for founders of startups. Success may not be guaranteed, but many startup founders do it for the simple thrill and joy of pursuing a great idea and bringing it to fruition and making a difference in the world. Those who focus solely on their success unfortunately lose the thrill that comes with the journey. What may start off as a simple and limited idea may turn into something extremely big and useful. There are many such examples. Airbnb, for instance, started off as a way to rent out an air mattress and is now one of the biggest online platforms for accommodations all over the world. It eases travel for people and families and also allows individuals to make money and use their living spaces when they're not using it. A win-win situation. The three main elements come together in any startup. One is the founder or the CEO who carries the overall vision and the drive to bring the team together and implement a successful idea. The second is the technical brain, the chief technical officer. Everything is technology driven these days. And the third is the venture capitalist or the angel investor who brings forth and provides the seed funding. An element of luck also plays its part. It's a variable that is not under our control and we cannot depend purely on luck alone. The body is like a venture capital group that funds a startup. It is our foundation, a base without which we cannot explore inside of ourselves. In our case, nature serves as the venture capitalist. It provides the seed for our success, our inner journey, the human body. The mind is like the chief technical officer. The mind has to be shaped into a seamless interface between freedom and creativity on the inside and orderly and limited world on the outside. Freedom, limitations, creativity, and a defined order are all essential components of a well-rounded life. In order to balance the metaphorical East, which is our inner world, and the metaphorical West, which is the outer external reality, the mind plays a huge role. There is a world-facing side of the mind, which we are familiar with, and an inner-facing side. Both have to work seamlessly with each other in order to turn the mind into something very useful. The power of awareness, or the CEO of our being, carries out the overall operations and it brings the mind into a well-rounded state. Unless there is one person looking at the overall picture, it's easy to get lost in unnecessary details that may delay or derail a project. The project of life is our most important undertaking. We have all the elements, the three main elements for success, which is the body, the mind, and the power of awareness. The core idea we pursue is to be happy. But from that core idea, there can be many other spin-offs that may benefit the world in different ways. Many have succeeded in their individual spiritual startups, and they turn small, unpredictable waves of happiness into giant oceans full of them. When each individual spiritual startup succeeds, the benefits spread to many people all over the world. Let's work on our spiritual startup and make it a success using our body, mind, and the power of awareness.